Welcome to the final episode of Acts of the Blood God for 2024 and the first ever Acts of the Blood God Choice Awards, in which we select the RPG of the Year, among other categories. We've been voting all week. This is it. This is the culmination of 2024, and joining me for this auspicious occasion, it's my lovely co-host, Nadia Oxford.
Hello, Kat. I love that word, auspicious. I actually first heard it in a Nightwish song, and since it's there, I can't remember where Nightwish is from, but I don't think English is the first language, so someone used the word auspicious in a very anime villain kind of way, because it was a song about the Columbine shootings. I think it's called Kinslayer. Yeah, it's a great song. Auspicious, if you will.
Also joining me is my equally lovely co-host, Eric Van Allen.
I love that we start with a pit, you know? We start the year with pits, we end the year with pits. Pits are always there. They're always with us. That's important, you
Life
know, here at the
begins
Blood
with
God.
new and ends with new, as the philosophy goes.
We never really escaped the pit in 2024. We just lived in the pit. The pit is us. We are the pit.
We
are the pit.
We are
the children.
In this week's episode, the last official episode of 2024, we are going to be awarding the Blood God Choice Awards, including the RPG of the Year, the Roadie, as well as Best Story, Best Character, Indie RPG of the Year, Studio of the Year. We've got a lot to cover in this one. We'll also be talking about Switch 2 leaks. We may know what it looks like now. We'll be discussing the extended look afforded Exodus. We'll be discussing a little bit about what we'll be playing over the holidays. What's our holiday backlog? We'll find out in just a moment. If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/bloodgodpod, where you get access to a ton of bonus content, including our upcoming newsletter, which launches in early January. It's going to be a weekly newsletter, and it'll be partly premium, partly free, and it'll be full of our writings and musings and RPG news. It'll be a really great little thing to have in your mailbox each week, but only our patrons get access to a couple of those newsletters per month. So go and subscribe at the $5 and above level. We're also going to be launching our first side quest. We recorded it yesterday, and boy, was that fun.
It sure was something.
It wasn't messy at all.
I definitely didn't learn a lot about aspirin cream or whatever it was. Advil cream.
Advil cream. That was me. I was like, holy shit, you guys have Advil cream in the States? Like, we have Voltaren. I know Voltaren very well, but like Advil cream? Damn.
I just love the idea of all like ingestible medication becoming topical. Like just being able to rub like, I don't know, Pepto on yourself. Just emerging from the pink goo vat like, my heartburn's gone.
Like the Super Mario movie, the first one.
Wow, double pit within the first 5 minutes? That was really impressive. Good job, everybody.
Yay,
We stored it up all year for this.
Here's the publishing schedule. So at the same time that the Blood God Awards are going up, our top 10s, our special bonus best games of the year. We had special guest Michael Hyam on. We shared our top 10 list. That's a bonus episode for our $5 and above patrons. You can go check that out right the heck now. Next Monday, we will be off, but we'll be releasing a Pantheon. Which Pantheon will it be? It'll be a 2023 Pantheon, but find out real soon. And then in the new year, we will be releasing the RPG preview on January 6th and our side quests on January 8th. That's the RPG music side quest. And finally, we'll be back to properly recording on January 11th. So we'll be right back to it for the year 2025. And hey, we've got a charity stream coming up almost exactly 1 month from now.
Yeah.
January 20th. There'll be a little counter programming on Inauguration Day. One more time, patreon.com/bloodgodpod. And now we're going to head into the RPG Awards. right after this. Okay. 2024, the RPG Awards, the Blood God Choice Awards. Before we get into that, I ask you, how was the year in RPGs? How do we rate it? Because I have some opinions, some strong opinions, but I want to hear yours. Eric, what do you think?
I think it was a pretty good year when it comes to like the number of RPGs we got for sure, but also like the breadth of RPGs we got. When I was going back over the list for the nominations and the end of year stuff, I was really surprised by the variety of what we had. You have kind of your dungeon crawlers, you have Diablo, Vessel of Hatred, and stuff like that. You have some really like classic stuff getting remastered, like Dragon Quest or Romancing Saga, and even within that, like Saga's pretty different from Dragon Quest in its nuts and bolts. And then you have stuff like Metaphor, you have Rebirth, and even Dragon's Dogma 2 really pushing action RPGs and what like third person open world action RPGs can be. So I definitely think there was like a really good variety of things. There's a strong chance that if you like RPGs, something came out this year that you really liked and really vibed.
I really like that we got RPGs that appealed to the real sickos, the Caves of Kuds, the Unicorn Overlords. But then we also got the RPGs that were much broader and more mainstream, the big budget ones like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Metaphor Refantasio. So truly, this year contained multitudes. My opinion is that while 2023 ultimately was stronger, 2023 was truly an all-timer, and it's tough to top Baldur's Gate 3, which for my money is the best RPG ever made, full stop. It did have a lot of really strong choices this year, with one of them being kind of dominating this list. I bet you can guess which one it is. Nadia, what are your thoughts on this year in RPGs?
It was a great year overall. I think maybe 2023 just barely edges it out because that was Tears of the Kingdom for me, which was just a fantastic game. But this year, I had a lot to choose from. Like, I'll be honest, Metaphor was not something I followed all that closely. I really wanted to kind of take it on its own merits. And I was thinking to myself, okay, well, I love Persona, but I was kind of Persona'd out by that point because 5 was just everywhere. But I wanted to make sure, I wanted to say, I wanted to affirm whether this was just another Persona or its own thing entirely, and it really is its own thing entirely. Like Metaphor, you can see where they took inspiration not just from Persona, but from SMT as well, and it is truly the third pillar that Atlas was going for, so yay to them for that. But also, I had a nice choice of maybe smaller games, like, for example, Visions of Mana. Had a great time with that, even though it's imperfect. Echoes of Wisdom, fun little, clever little game where you could throw snakes and sharks at your enemies, so what's not to love. I played Dawn Trail, which was a really emotional journey. Which, if you listen to the what did we just record? I'm so like messed up on. We've done so much recording over the past few days. We were talking with Chaim about, it was at Top Games, right? Okay, so yeah, that was one of my top games, and it wasn't like the length of Metaphor or anything like that, but it was still a good meaty RPG experience. Loved visiting the new world. I thought they did a great job setting up a new story, which is a hard thing to do. Yeah, I am satisfied. I think we had a great year.
I just had an idea for a category, and we definitely need to add this to next year's awards. The best Is This an RPG award. Because Echoes of Wisdom absolutely would have been in that category.
I totally forgot. I'm just like, oh yeah, Echoes of Wisdom. Oh shit, that's really not an RPG in any sense. And yet, it is
the best RPG with RPG elements. The best RPG elements game.
Best RPG adjacent RPG.
The best RPG ?
RPG of the year.
Put an ellipsis RPG, and that's the category.
Question marks on the ends of the categories. You know he'll read them.
I'm Ron Burgundy.
And that leads us into our first category, Best Story. And here are the nominees: Dragon's Dogma, Persona 3 Reload, Legend of Heroes Trails Through Daybreak, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and Metaphor Refantagio. This one was a clean sweep, as was several other categories, and the winner is Metaphor Refantagio, Best Story, Best RPG Story for 2024, and kind of an obvious choice, I think. One game really stood head and shoulders above them all. Really sophisticated, deeply layered political story that managed to have a rich fantasy setting. Definitely one of the most original stories of the year and really fit the mood, I think, in so many ways.
Yeah, I think when it comes to Metaphor, because I was really wrestling with this one between this and P3R, were kind of my two front runners for this category. I think everything in this category has like very valid reason to be here, especially Dragon's Dogma 2. Shout out to that one. Has a like really fascinating story, but I ended up putting my weight in another category for that one. But I think with Metaphor, it's not even just the political story that really moves me, but like the broader ideas of the power of fiction, the power of stories themselves, the power of what the things that we tell ourselves, the stories that we tell ourselves can do for us. There's like a great running theme throughout it of your protagonist like reading this idealistic novel that's like what the world could be, and it's this really cool running undercurrent of how do we look towards novels and fiction and ideas for inspiration in our own lives. And I really, really like that a lot. I think it was a really moving thing as somebody who takes a lot of inspiration, especially from novels in their lives. And anybody who likes a good book, I think you can resonate with this story really well. So yeah, that stuff super worked for me. I also love, now that I'm watching this B-roll that we've got going, I love how just bonkers this story gets at times. Like, I think we forget that there's a giant face that just watches everybody.
That's what I love about this story. You're playing, you're doing whatever, and no matter what you're doing, there's this face looming at you. It's like Majora's Mask, except the moon just doesn't fall. It just threatens you. It glowers at you.
It's very weird, I have to say. And I think this story really benefits from the fact that it doesn't get overwhelmed by romances. Early on, I wondered if Metaphor could be successful without the romances. And it turns out that that was one of the better decisions that the development team made, because it allowed all the characters to breathe without you constantly thinking about who you're going to actually date. But you can also, at the same time, you can still write your fan fiction. You can still write your hot Heismay fan fiction. I'm not going to judge. Okay. And speaking of Heismay, let's go into our next category, Best Character. And the nominees are Emmerich from Dragon Age the Veilguard, Wook Lamont from Final Fantasy XIV Daybreak, Ichiban Casca from Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, and Heismay from Metaphor Refantagio. And this one was another unanimous sweep. Me, Eric, Nadia, the community all agree. The winner is Heismay from Metaphor Refantagio. That's two winners.
I will say, at least in the community vote, it was Heismay won, but it was closer than you would think. It was not a like sweep victory for Heismay. Both Tifa and Ichiban were pretty close runner-ups in this category.
Really?
I just like Heismay because I am someone who has always liked small warriors, being small myself. Like, I loved Reepicheep from Narnia, the little mouse with the earring who had a huge attitude and stabbed everyone in the ankles, and did a really good job of it. So when I saw Heismay, who is a bat, first of all, I love bats. Second of all, he's kind of like a sugar glider, kind of a combination of the two. And I just like small, noble things. And Heismay has a great story behind him as well.
Yeah, I was going to say I love what Heismay brings to the cast because it really highlights what has been missing from these Atlas RPGs for me for a while is like an adult. Heismay is a father.
Dad told that
Mild
energy.
character spoilers. And I think the story that they tell with him about him and his son, about his life as a Yugi, about his village, and about their cultural traditions and how those things start to clash with his own ideals and beliefs are really, really interesting and moving, and feel like stories that Atlas has not really been able to broach with their traditionally high school coming of age school life setting, or maybe they do at like a very base level. You know, maybe you go back to P5 and you talk to anime Bernie Sanders and you can get some of that. But like I genuinely love Heismei's story. I think of the companions, he's probably in the top 2 for my personal favorite when it comes to their story and their background. The other one being the last companion you unlock, who I will not name for spoiler reasons. But I also love that character. I really wanted to put that character on the nomination list. Excellent character. But Heismei, I think, is just the runaway. And then he has, of all the people with voice lines in this game, like when they use abilities and stuff, he has some of the best. Oh, power of kings. Or when he's about to cast like Mudo and he does like little Naruto hand signs, he's like, some Daka arts.
Yeah. I love my favorite still when he's I can't remember if it's his thief class where he's like, you think yourself equal to a Yuji's agility? That's my favorite. I love the boy. I love little character additions, like quirks. Like, for example, I'm looking at a picture of him now, and he has like the little slash in his ear. Obviously, he has big ears. That's going to be a big hitbox for him. So you see that kind of like nick in there, and like that's just like the kind of telltale of the battles he's been in. And I just love little stuff like that.
Heismei, I think there was a good meme that compared him to Teddy and Morgan from P4 and P5. It was like P4 Teddy going, "Am I real?" and Morgan going, are they named Morgan? What's the name of the cat?
Morgana.
In P5. Morgana. What? Morgana. Gosh. I'm getting old, folks. I'm sorry. Morgana is saying, "I want to be human," and Heismei saying, "I watched my children get killed mercilessly because nobody cared." And you're like, "Oh, cool." How sad. And I think that really speaks to maybe the difference between Metaphor Refantagio and some of the other works that this team in particular has put out. The team's grown. I think they've matured a lot, actually, and I think that's quite admirable.
For sure.
As for the rest of the nominees, I suggested Ichiban Kasuga because I think he's become one of the great RPG characters out there. He's just so fun, and
great. I
enjoyed the contrast with Kiryu because one is very high energy, one's very taciturn, and it makes for some great comedy, if I'm being totally honest. So even though like Kiryu hijacks Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth just a little bit, in my opinion. And did you want to say something about Uklamat, Nadia?
I love Wuklamat. Wuklamat, her voice actor, friend of the show, Son of Briar, came under some fire because the Grift Patrol, who never played Final Fantasy XIV in their life and clearly don't understand that it's a queer hatching ground with hatches more eggs than Dravania is what I think I said. So you have the Grift Patrol they're making this game woke, and everyone's laughing like this game has always been like very woke. But unfortunately, Son of Briar did come under some Woklamat, But her performance,
positively,
I liked her as a character. Again, Dawn Trail is a beginning, and it's never easy to write beginnings, and she really does grow up throughout the journey. Also, she's a really hot lion chick. I don't see the problem here. Like, I like her. She's cool.
Yeah, I think Wuklamat was a really interesting addition to the cast because we're basically in a new world, a new land, and I think honestly, they're like bad faith grifters on one side, and that's like a completely different conversation that doesn't have any logical sense to it other than rents do. But like, there were also people who I think there's always been a weird undercurrent of people who want to be like the main character of Final Fantasy 14 because
Yes,
Final Fantasy
that's a
14
good
usually
point.
does make you the main character, but
Yes.
I really liked having Wukalamat as like this character that you kind of follow and watch grow. I mean, we've had our own journeys for so long. Like Shadowbringers and especially Endwalker are about like your character's individual journey. That suddenly having this character who we got to follow their path and see them kind of become the character that they want to be, as well as all the other candidates around them. I really enjoyed like the candidates, the fight for the throne. I enjoyed Wukalamat having to deal with a lot of the feelings that you have as I don't want to get into story spoilers, but there's a lot of like feelings about family, about what you owe to your family, what is owed. Who is your family? What does your family mean to you? And just a lot of stuff about legacy and carrying on, expectations. And I really liked Wukalamat as a character, and I thought the performance was really, really good. And I came away from Dawn Trail like really enjoying the characters and the expansion, and just thought a lot of people were blowing a lot of hot air for nothing. I mean, some people ain't never gonna be happy, but
You did bring up a good. Sorry, you did bring up a good point
Yeah.
about some people just not being able to manage the fact that the Warrior of Light is not front and center this time, because you are visiting a whole new land. Like, this
Yeah.
is not really. Yes, you have been asked to, help out with politics, but it's not really your place to be front and center when the thing is about Wukalamat and her siblings competing for the throne to become the leader of this land. Like, you are off. You're certainly there. Like, you still have a huge part, but story-wise, you are a little bit, tiny bit off to the side, and some people are having a really hard time with that. It makes me wonder how they'd handle World of Warcraft, because aren't you like a spear carrier in that story?
Yeah. World of Warcraft, you're like not even really a character, but like maybe I'm thinking of it because I've finally started watching One Piece. But like there are arcs where like Luffy is there, and Luffy is probably going to handle the final fight of the arc, take down the biggest bad dude, or like Dragon Ball, Goku is going to show up and do the big fight eventually. But sometimes this arc just really ain't about Goku. It really ain't about Luffy. Like I'm watching Arlong Park right now, and this arc is very much about Nami, and it's about like her story and where she came from and what she's dealing with. And like Luffy's doing stuff. Luffy is there. Luffy will fight people. But like the story is really about other characters. It's really focused on them, and like the same thing. I could draw such easy comparisons here where it's like, yeah, like the Warrior of Light is participating in the story of Dawn Trail, is certainly like there to back up their friends, but like they're not getting the huge character growth and development moments. It ain't their story this time around. I like that. I think that's great personally.
Yeah,
I
same.
love seeing characters like Wukalamat, like Kryl, get these stories and tell really interesting tales with them. Aaron Vell,
Vell's
yeah,
fantastic.
like his story was absolutely phenomenal. I love him as a character. I was so glad he was like a focal point of this expansion.
Also, Kona. Love Kona.
Oh, Kona's so good.
I love where he's
7.1
going.
7.1 gave Kona some real good moments that
Yeah.
reminded me that I love Kona.
Okay. Let's talk about the indie RPG of the year. And here are our nominees: SteamWorld Heist 2, Scarmond, Caves of Kud, Tactical Breach Wizards, and UFO 50. And before we get to the winner, Nadia, you're on record as saying SteamWorld Heist 2 is, in your opinion, one of the most overlooked games of 2024.
Yes. I mean, to be fair, I don't know anything about sales or data or anything like that, but it just seems like it should have been talked about a bit more than it was. I think most of us agree that SteamWorld Heist is just one of the best strategy games out there, and even though SteamWorld Heist 2 didn't innovate wildly, it really didn't need to. What it added was pretty good. The ship I'm kind of so on. The ship, there's like naval combat, but the puzzles, the levels are just fantastic, and even those are even better than in the first game. Like, they're just more involved, a little bit bigger. There's a little bit more to do, and of course, Steam Powered Giraffe is there, and all of their songs are just really brassy and fun. So you really can't go wrong. The game, I easily recommend it. It's one of my favorites for this year.
The winner is UFO 50, which had a variety of RPGs in it, actually, of all different flavors, and they all had slightly different take on it. So you could see a lot of recognizable elements in UFO 50's RPGs. Like Valbrace looked a lot like Wizardry or Eye of the Beholder, and Grimstone looked kind of like a combination of Final Fantasy and Wild Arms, but with like a tiny timing element that was kind of reminiscent of Shadow Hearts. And they took a lot of the classic elements of these games, but clearly had fun kind of adding their own twist to it. How much did you two play UFO 50 out of curiosity?
Not as much as I would have liked. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this was a game that every time I open it up, I get a little bit of choice paralysis where I'm like, oh God, there's so many games here and
I'm
I can
worried
just
about that too.
play all of them. And usually it takes me like sitting down and being like, okay, you're going to play one of these games and you're going to play them for a while and you're not going to like bounce around or lose, hit a point where you don't know how to play the game and go like, I'll go somewhere else. But I will say, like, of the ones that really held my attention this year, it's just on the B-roll right there. It's one where you have, like, these discs, and you kind of, like, go through a map, like Fire Emblem, and recruit different characters and add them to your party. And then when you go into a battle, you have, like, an arena, and you flick the discs at each other, and they do damage when they hit, and they have a certain amount of health, and they also have, like, cooldown times because of, maybe an ogre takes longer to charge up than a like rat does. And so you have all this strategy around how often you can flick the discs and how much damage they do and how often they ricochet and stuff like that. And it's almost like Pogs, like someone made a tactical RPG out of Pogs or something like that, or marbles, and it works so well. And I think that is not to get like into other stuff, but I think it's like one of the coolest things about UFO 50 is that every game feels whole. Every game feels not like just a WarioWare mini game, but like something that could have existed on its own of its era. Like you are getting this compilation of a bygone age of video games, and that feels really amazing to play. And so I'm not surprised that so many people walked away from or walked into this category being like, yeah, UFO 50 is like amazing. This was the one that got a lot of buzz throughout the year, and a lot of people were just really enthused about it.
And Eric, your vote was for Caves of Qud.
Yeah, I've only played a few hours of this game at this point, but when I thought about it and I looked at all the category nominees, I could not pick anything else because Caves of Qud is like, not only is it a titanic achievement in terms of just development time and putting something together, but it is, I think it's something that's just really magical. Like I know that's like a little hyperbolic, but like I'm trying to pull up the tweet. Great live content, I know. But yeah, from Brian Bucklew on Blue Sky. I'm really proud of Caves of Qud because for every 49 kids who won't even click past the trailer with ASCII graphics or quit on their first opaque death, one will break through and realize that video games can be and have been in the past something else, something new. And I think that's real good. One of those kids is going to make something else real good. That's this game. 49 of you are going to play Caves of Qud and be like, yeah, it's neat, I guess. And you're going to bounce off it. Maybe I've been that way where I've had to try and like get into it a few times. I have to be like, I get the vision, but it's not like clicking with me. It's like a little difficult to get in there. But there is one person out there for every 49 who's going to look at this and like neurons are just going to fire like fireworks. And yeah. I love that. I love that this type of game can get made in 2024, that like people will go nuts for ASCII graphics and systems based mechanics and opaque decisions and weird storytelling and worlds where people are mutating into weird biomutants and like attaching appendages, but also it's like fantasy. It's like a weird grime punk aesthetic, but it's all being told in this little command line box, and it's everything about it is like just a time portal, and I love it for that. It's amazing. It is absolutely the game that I think I respect the most of this year. Anybody who's coming out of this is I'm like, I respect you for the sicko that you are.
As someone who once played a Final Fantasy VI MUD, I might give it a try, but the only thing I remember about playing that MUD is that I got lost in the area behind Narsh with like the it's kind of a maze where you fight Kefka that one time, so I'm trying to go like north, south, east, west, and I just can't find where I'm going, and I gave up.
Can I admit something here on the Blood God Awards?
Oh my gosh. An admission.
So every time I see Narsh or hear someone say Narsh, y'all familiar
Narf.
with Thundercats?
Yes.
Yeah.
Narf.
I hear snarf, but like Narsh. Like the characters are talking, they're like, we must solve the problem. Terra is sick. We need to take down Kefka. We have to go to Narsh.
Narf.
Like they can't
I
say
hear
it normally.
I hear Pinky from Pinky and the Brain.
Oh,
Narf.
yeah.
Played by, I believe, our friend Ash Paulson's dad, Rob Paulson.
Yeah, that's one of the funniest things, that like one of the weird like associations you get while living. Like, oh yeah, I'm friends with the father of, you know.
Speaking of performances, our next category is Performance of the Year. This recognizes the actors who help bring some of our favorite RPG characters to life. And the nominees are Kaji Tang / Kazuhiro Nakia or Ichiban Kasuga. They're both so good that we kind of wanted to recognize them both.
Yeah, couldn't choose.
Richard Lintern, who played Egon in Shadow of the Erdtree. Go read Reb Valentine's excellent profile of Richard Lintern. Philippe Spall, Heisme, Metaphor Refantagio. John Eric Bentley, Barrett in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And friend of the show, Brianna White, Aerith in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And the winner is Brianna White for her role as Aerith in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Well deserved. What put her over the top for me was definitely the solo song performance in Loveless.
Mm-hmm.
She's got a beautiful voice, I have to say. And it's a really lovely performance. One of my favorite moments of the year, spoiler. And it's terrific. So to me, she stood kind of head and tails over everybody. She really brought a kind of a critical role in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Maybe the most critical role to life.
Yeah, I think that she nails the performance whenever she's talking to Cloud. Like, there's a moment where anytime she calls Cloud an asshole, she's just spot on, because Cloud always deserves it. She does it so well. But yeah, she's I personally voted for Barrett's voice actor, just because there's some really fantastic moments in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth where he's really having so much fun with the role. And the moment I think of is when you're in the town under Junon, and you meet Yuffie, and you save her, and Yuffie's like, "Thank you very much," and Barrett's just like, "You're welcome." That scornful, like, little spit at the end. Just anytime, and also I have to shout out the fact that he did the cutscene with Dyne so well, because that's always been an extremely emotional part of Final Fantasy VII, and I wondered how they were going to handle it, and yeah, they did it really well. So shout outs to all of them. They're all fantastic, but.
Yeah, I think this was a category where, again, any one of these folks could have won it, and I would have been like, yeah, that makes sense. I see that. I personally voted for Richard Lintern because there's something about that, like, curse you, Bale. That's like, oh, it was so good. It was so excellent. I've never heard somebody just show up out of nowhere, probably have like the fewest voice lines of everyone in this category, but make the most impact. Like everyone who played archery remembers that character and that specific beef between a man and a dragon. And I love that. But I think Brianna White would have been my runner up because a lot of Rebirth has to get carried by the drama around Aerith, to put it frankly. Like the big question mark on Rebirth. And I think what Brianna White does with the role in those moments, especially where Aerith has always been kind of in the remake trilogy, like a lot of people have questions like, oh, does she know what's going on? Is she aware of stuff? Is she like knowing more than she lets on? She's messing with Cloud, she's like manipulating things. And I think like Brianna White did a really good job with just Aerith's demeanor throughout this whole thing, of really carrying that kind of both like playful, like naivete almost, like oh, I'm just a flower girl, I'm just here to hang out, and then like secretly like, oh no, there's more going on. I think there's like a very good balance and dynamic there that makes Aerith like easily one of the most compelling characters in Rebirth. So yeah, definitely like a good winner.
I thought John Eric Bentley did a surprising amount of emotional heavy lifting in Rebirth, and I guess it's not that surprising, but he has one of the key arcs in the remake when he returns home and you see the origins of how he got the gun arm. And he does a really good job of conveying a lot of his regrets and what exactly led him to joining Avalanche. And he's really good at expressing moral outrage, but also being goofy.
I also want to just point out the NPCs have some great performances. Like when you're in Coral Prison and you have that guy pitching the books, like, buy the boss's book or I'll stab the shit out of you. You can't read? Don't worry, it's mostly pictures anyway.
Rebirth, I think, especially surprised me with just how solid the voice cast was across the board. There's a lot of great work in there. Also, special shout outs to Ichiban, both of the Ichibans. Ichiban remains forever just like the most perfect boy, the bestest boy around. And I think Infinite Wealth, for all of my qualms I might have about the story or whatever, Ichiban gets some really good emotional moments in there, and both of the voice actors did very, very well with the material.
I would go as far as to say that the voice actors, especially the English voice cast, make Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth. They crushed the casting. And if they had gotten that wrong, they would have been really roasted by fans.
Oh, yeah.
And because everybody has an image in their head of what these characters sound like, but it's not easy to get right. For example, Barrett is not easy to get right. It's so easy to fall into parody with him. Cloud is not easy to get right, despite the fact that being able to capture him being a little goofy in addition to being the taciturn soldier, getting the humor of Cloud's role right, very hard, I think. So the fact that they basically hit on 100% of the roles in Remake and Rebirth is a phenomenal accomplishment by Square Enix. And gosh, they really get so close to being a truly transcendently perfect remake. What a shame.
I think there's like a moment, because I don't know if we'll talk about it later, but like there's a moment in the ending of Rebirth that I won't like get into too many details, but there's like this line that Aerith reads when she and Cloud are talking in a specific place, and there's like a hint of like melancholy to it that is like maybe one of the moments that has stuck with me the most from a voice actor's performance throughout this year, of just like capturing exactly the emotion and conveying it through the performance alone. Like it really like hit me like a truck during that extended ending sequence, and it was really, really powerful. So yeah, shouts out to all the Rebirth folks.
Time now for the next category, track of the year. Music does so much to define an RPG experience, whether in big story beats or during battles or while you're exploring the world. And being able to get the music right and have a really memorable soundtrack is really crucial, I think. And it's no surprise that a lot of the all-time greatest soundtracks belong to RPGs, and we had some good ones this year. And here are the nominees. It's Going Down, Persona 3 Reload, In Fulgur and Flame, Final Fantasy XIV, Dawn Trail, Auld Lang Syne, Saga, Emerald Beyond, Genova Lifeklinger, Final Fantasy VII, Rebirth, and Warriors of Valor, Metaphor, Refantagio. And the winner is Warriors of Valor, Metaphor, Refantagio, Monk Chanting Intensifies.
It is such a unique song, such a great battle song. Like, this is the quintessential battle song to me. Like, I said, as much as I loved Last Surprise, I did eventually get sick of hearing it. Like, I never, ever got sick of hearing. We really dissected it in our recording yesterday. Like, we were talking about the top RPG themes of all time.
Spoiler alert! It's on the list.
Yeah, just the rise and the quick rise that gets your attention just as your attention is flagging, and then like, it is so masterfully crafted. But that said, and I was the one who nominated In Fulgur and Fire, and damn, that's such a great song. That is when you go up against the Vanguard dungeon in Dawn Trail, and it's a very futuristic mix of futuristic and Western. It's such an interesting area, and it's like just got this like wailing guitar that you start with, and it's just relentless. Fantastic year for music.
I want to shout out the nominations and the love for the Saga Emerald Beyond song, which is basically, I listened to it when I was doing my votes for these, and ended up voting for Auld Lang Syne personally, even over stuff like Metaphor and all that, just because I cannot stress to y'all enough that you don't know what that song is going to sound like until you put it on. It's crazy. It's essentially like a techno Ghost in the Shell style remix of Auld Lang Syne, which is very festive and very fitting for the time. But it sounds incredible. It sounds amazing. And my understanding is that it arrives at the culmination of a major arc for one of those characters in Saga Emerald Beyond. And there were a lot of votes in the categories for these characters, for characters, specifically the diva character from Emerald Beyond. And that song, it rips. It's real good. Good pick, y'all. Thank you, sickos, for showing up.
Our next category, moment... Oh, hold on. Before we get to that, actually, I just wanted to give some love to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth soundtrack. I would be totally remiss if I didn't do that. I voted for Genova Lifeklinger, and I think the Genova was a real highlight of the original Final Fantasy VII soundtrack. Yeah. It's so different from a lot of the other songs on that. It's kind of mournful, kind of wistful, a little simple, but really good hooks, kind of lives in your head. Genova is definitely one of the most sophisticated songs in the original soundtrack, and they had so much fun remixing it, playing around, using it as the base for a lot of different tracks. And honestly, I think rebirths and remake soundtracks have been really special overall. They really go for it.
Yeah,
with these songs. So
in the chat, Radical Defect says bow wow wow bow wow wow, because that was the theme song for Stamp. There's actually a fantastic quest in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth where you're following, I think his name was Sammy or Salmon, and you're following this dog as he runs to like go.
I think it was Stamp.
No, the theme that you hear during the quest is the Stamp theme. Bow wow wow bow wow wow.
Oh,
but
okay.
The dog
I thought his
itself
name was
is
Stamp.
taking. The dog itself is that you're following is taking like supplies to the next camp or something like that.
Okay.
And Cloud and Barrett are just kind of reminiscing as they walk. But that was just so many great fun songs in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. The soundtrack really is like one of the highlights of the year.
Yeah, I think if this was a like cumulative, the entire soundtrack award, Rebirth would be running away with it.
Yeah, I think they did at the Game Awards, right? So
Yeah.
well deserved.
The moment of the year is our next category, and this celebrates the moments that will stay with us for a long time, the moments that we talk about when we're playing an RPG. And here's the categories. The shark boat fight in Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. The Minrathous or Treviso choice in Dragon Age, the Veilguard. The Mesmer fight in Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree. The Loveless performance in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And the ending, for better or worse, of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Wasn't there?
And the
another one, wasn't there?
RPG.
Did you say
Maybe?
Dragon's
What's
Dogma
there?
2?
The title reveal in Dragon's Dogma 2, yeah.
Okay, good. Sorry. I missed that. My bad.
Eric, you're ruining the drama.
I know. I'm sorry. My bad. I'm like managing 5 different screens over here.
Yeah, I can barely manage one.
And the winner is the Loveless performance in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which they did Square Enix has been doing a concert series for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and that's
Seen it. It's good.
one of the big ones, actually. And the Loveless performance to me is just evidence of how ridiculous Square has gotten with this series. I'm going to be real. I kind of wish this trilogy were one game. I think they could do it in one game. I think that they should exercise a little more control over their scope. But they went and they modeled out and created an entire extended gameplay sequence around the Loveless performance with alternate character models for multiple characters, a solo performance by Brianna White. It is genuinely one of the more wild things that I've seen anyone do in a AAA RPG. And I think it does a great job of elevating sort of a critical moment in Rebirth, which is the date.
The date.
Which,
The date.
if you listen to the top 10s, you'll know that once again, unlucky in love, Kat Bailey.
Yeah, you need to see a psychic or something.
I'm the worst.
I don't know how it keeps happening. I genuinely
That's the
don't know how it
funniest
keeps
thing.
happening. Like
You have the girls like throwing themselves at you, and yet
I thought it was going to be Aerith. I
it's
did. I was
more
nice to her.
difficult to get like Ket, She, and the rest of them than it is to get Aerith. Like I know so many people who they're like, I didn't even really talk to Aerith much, and I got Aerith. Like
I got Cat She. How did this even happen?
I got a hand job on the wheel thing.
I didn't even interact with him that much. What the heck?
Maybe you just think you're cute.
It's just, I don't know, between this and the It's Your Cousin, which I think we wanted to make that a moment of the year.
yeah, there were some
It's one
arguments
of
that
the
that should be
nominees.
moment of the year. Yeah.
That's the Blood God moment of the year.
With going back to Square though, that's kind of always been their pedigree. Is like you think about the opera and FF6. In a way, Loveless is very much an upgrade for the modern era.
It is. And I mean, I think a lot of Crisis Core, where one of the main villains is obsessed with Loveless. In the original Final Fantasy VII, you just see, it just goes to show the bloat of the world building in FF7 when you're walking past a theater, and you see Loveless, and you're like, what is Loveless? And they're like, we're going to flesh that out. You didn't really ask for it, but we're fleshing the heck out of this. And you know what? It was great. I really enjoyed it. So
It's good.
Moment of the year.
Shout outs, I want to say, to the title reveal in Dragon's Dogma 2 that happens almost at the end of the game. It's incredible. I love a late title card, and the way it's specifically used in Dragon's Dogma 2 to set up like the story that game is telling. Again, massive spoilers to even begin to tell y'all why that's important, but it really works. It really, really, really works. And I think Dragon's Dogma 2 got largely overlooked this year by a lot of folks. It is a little bit difficult to get into. It is a little complex. Enemy variety kind of sucks. I fought so many griffins in that game, but like when it fires on all cylinders, it is doing some stuff that y'all it's incredible. So yeah, that title reveal was the culmination of a lot of really cool stuff in that game, and deserves some praise and some flowers.
I want to shout out the Dragon Age the Veilguard Minrathous or Treviso choice, because Dragon Age the Veilguard hasn't gotten a lot of love this year, but I think this is one of the more ambitious moments in it. It's a choice that you make relatively early on that has really lasting consequences throughout the game, not just on the environments themselves. It changes the looks of the cities, it changes the vendors, it changes the story. It also changes your party members and has a lasting impact on them as well. And that's not easy to implement into an RPG. And I think it does a good job of establishing and then raising the stakes in Dragon Age the Veilguard and making everything feel a lot more impactful and a lot more meaningful. So really good stuff. That's exactly the kind of thing that I like to see in a BioWare RPG. And it's not an easy decision as well. It's not exactly rote. It's not one that you can just figure your way out of and have it both ways. It's going to hit. So really good stuff from BioWare, I have to say. Okay. Next category. Best expansion / update. We're putting this one in here because, I mean, frankly, this is what the Game Awards should do. This is recognizing the best expansion or update in an RPG. RPGs, like every other genre, they're basically living games. They keep being updated throughout the year. And this recognizes the work that these developers are doing around them. And also, some of the greatest RPG stories are told through expansions. Witcher 3 Blood and Wine is a terrific example of that. And here are your nominees. Diablo 4 Vessel of Hatred, Stardew Valley patch 1.6, The Baldur's Gate 3 Evil Endings / mods update, Final Fantasy XIV Dawn Trail, and Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree. And the winner, and it was close, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree is the best expansion / update of 2024. I mean, so Erdtree, I did vote for it. I thought it was really strong. Had some really great boss battles, a lot of really great world design. I've said before that when you play Elden Ring, it feels like you've completed a really amazing, truly phenomenal feast, and you're so full you cannot eat another bite. And then Shadow of the Erdtree just shows up and says, "Here's another 30 hours for you."
Oh no, I'm constipated. That said, of course, I did not get to play it. It is on my list because Elden Ring is one of my favorite RPGs. I never thought I'd like it as much as I did. But I put in my vote for Dawn Trail, and we've already gone over why Dawn Trail was a good expansion, so probably don't need to press the point home. But yeah, Final Fantasy XIV continues to give good quality expansions. Nice stuff.
Yeah, I think Erdtree is really something spectacular, even within like the history of a developer that does some pretty incredible DLC, right? Like FromSoft has always been known for how good their post-launch DLC tends to be. It usually tends to be this big thing that answers an unanswered question from the base game, or adds some really incredible fights, or really like puts a bow on the whole thing. And I think Erdtree is like the culmination of that, where we get the kind of answers to all the lingering questions around Mikola and all that from like base Elden Ring. But also we get these really imaginative environments and new ways of playing through the game. There's the return of, I forgot what the enemies are in Bloodborne that basically like hunt you and like suck the life out of you and stuff like that. But we get that forest with those same creepy enemies in Erdtree. We get a new power scaling system. We get these characters. It's basically you get like Golden Age Berserk, where everyone's like, we're all on a merry adventure together as the Band of the Hawk doing great stuff together. And then everybody just has the worst time. Everybody has such a bad time. Nobody's happy. And I think that story was really interesting and compelling, and even felt, personally to me like an homage to a lot of the stories that influenced the Soul series and Elden Ring and things like that. It felt like an homage to the Band of the Hawk and to Berserk, personally. So that was no surprise there to see that went out, but it was surprisingly close. Like you said, Kat, I personally voted for Baldur's Gate 3 because I've loved the support that has come out from Larian since the launch of that game, and I think especially the evil endings were a really good recognition of places where they could have done more and did want to do more, and was kind of like the cap off point to all the stuff they had added in post-launch to really flesh out so much of this game's story.
The Karlach evil ending, where if you play as Karlach and you just go full evil, pretty good stuff.
Okay.
Pretty good. The Asterion evil ending is also pretty haunting. Like, all the evil endings are like very haunting in a way that I think the fan base, like, I say this lightly, I say this gently, I hold your hand while I say this. A lot of people played Baldur's Gate 3 and played a good character, and that's fine. You should play a good character if you want to play a good character. I think people sometimes forget what an evil character looks like, especially in the world of D&D. And so they saw the evil endings and they were like, "Oh no. Oh no." And it's like, yeah. That's
people
what it looks like.
People are like, "I want to be evil, but I don't want to be mean. Oh my god, I don't want to actually destroy the world." Well, I get bad news, everybody. Being evil comes with destruction. You're going to end up making a lot of people are going to die. A lot of people are going to be sad because of you. Lean into it. Lean into being evil.
Put differently, if you want to be evil, you are going to be the villain of the story, and probably the greatest villain of the story, because you are going to have to kill the other villains to get your way. And like, there are some games that really lean into this, like the Pathfinder games and stuff like that. But I think BG3 adding this stuff in post, I understand why some of it was maybe not at launch, because I bet if you look at player numbers across most choice-based RPGs, people go good because people want to be a hero. They want to be the good person. They want to do the good thing. But like, man, there's some evil stuff they added that's just crazy. It's so good.
Well, Kat's playing the Dark Urge during our live Baldur's Gate 3 playthrough that we're doing.
Dark Cat.
Some things have happened that made me say, Jesus Christ, that's terrible.
Yeah.
And we barely started.
You want to be the Dark Urge? Be the Dark Urge. I have been really impressed by Larian's continued support of Baldur's Gate 3. They said, we're done with it. We're basically finished with Baldur's Gate 3 and we're moving on. But by the way, here's some huge, meaty patches with tons and tons of patch notes. Their support of Baldur's Gate 3 has been really admirable. They could have put out a few patches and then more or less called it a day, and they didn't. So, great work.
For free, which is like a really cool running theme in all this. Like, I'm not saying like that all post-launch stuff should be free, but seeing Larian and like Concerned Ape as well do these like really big, meaty content updates to these games and do them like just putting them out there to say like, hey, we got our money, we made our cash, we're doing good. Here's something for y'all. Here's something that we just want to put together for y'all. That's great.
God help me, I'm back on my Stardew Valley bullshit.
It's the Bugs Bunny meme of like, time to go back to the old me, but it's playing Lord, like it's a Switch with Stardew.
There's the companies that put out updates and they're working really hard, but there's a little bit of a cheerlessness to it. It's like, here's more content. You asked for more content. Here you go, community. Have your
Seasonal
helping of
roadmap.
content.
Use your wrench.
And Baldur's Gate 3 and Stardew Valley both seems like the creators genuinely going, I mean, we said we'd move on, but we have 500 more ideas, and there's so much we've been wanting to fix. So anyway, here's a 1.5 gig size patch update. It's totally for free. Have fun. It completely updates and adds so much to the game. Stardew Valley's 1.6 update is freaking wild in how much it adds. I mean, events like the Green Rain, which totally changes the tile set in many ways. It's
The Green
wild.
Rain?
I got creeped out by that.
What
'cause
does
it's
the
very-
green? What does the green rain do?
So it's
It's
rain, except it's green, and everything becomes wild. Plants go crazy. Everything is
Everything
sprouting
gets
all
more
around your
moss.
farm. All of the various NPCs end up in the tavern and are going, "Whoa, what the heck is this crazy green rain?"
If
So
you
you can
check
go
the-
and bring them unique gifts, and they have unique reactions to the green rain. Some of them don't care about it that much. Others are a little more concerned. It's
Dimitri
really
is
neat.
fun. It is very neat. It's a really cool atmospheric thing because the lighting changes completely in the game, and the sound changes. And actually,
It's
if you
spooky.
check the TV, you get green static, which is always like that kind of thing. Always like
So
gives
you're
me a little
supposed
bit
to
of a
put your
tingle.
hand in the TV when that happens.
Yes,
That's when you go
yes.
into the TV. Yeah.
Backside of the
And
TV.
Robo Riley mentioned the Raccoon Family Quest. Really big fan of that one as well.
How do you
Yeah.
do that? That sounds amazing. I love raccoons. I live in Toronto.
It's an event that happens where an area you'll get a prompt saying, "Hey, this happened," and if you go and investigate, you can start filling out bundles, and eventually you'll start getting raccoons,
Okay, got to do this. I'm sold.
and they open their own little shop. It's lovely. I love it.
Raccoons ride the subway in Toronto. It's great. Well, it's not great, but they end up there.
Okay. This one is an interesting category. It was already an interesting category, but it's our first tie.
Ooh.
The RPG Little Freako of the year, dedicated to our favorite Little Freako in RPGs in 2024. And here were our nominees: Kid G from Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Sela and the Sirens from Hades 2, the Sujimon from Infinite Wealth, Homo Dentata, aka The Teeth, and Metaphor Refantasio, and Ketchi, that's what I'm calling them, sorry, from Final Fantasy
Yeah.
VII
Case.
Rebirth.
What the hell is a
It was equally split between our four voters. The community choose Ketchi. Eric picked Kid G. Nadia picked Homo Dentata. And I picked Sela and the Sirens in Hades 2. It seems like nobody's going to go over to my vote, which, by the way, Sela and the Sirens are great. I loved Hades 2 a lot. It was one of my favorite things
just
of
waiting till
this
it's
year.
done. Yeah.
I
wanna
loved the singing. I like any vocal tracks, honestly, and I love a good boss battle with a vocal track. They're easily the most memorable and enjoyable boss battle to me in Hades 2. And, just fun to fight. I love the drummer in particular.
So
but
I
my vote is up for grabs, is what I'm saying.
I will step in here and I will say that breaking down the numbers on the community vote, the winner there, as we said, was Ketchi, but it was by a single vote. The next highest was Homo Dentata, aka the Teeth.
The Teeth.
I will also say that the smallest vote of the community vote was Kid G, and I think it's because not enough people actually did that side quest and met Kid G. But if you saw Kid G, you would be on my side. I'm gonna pull this
Kid G's-
image up. We have
Kid
the
G's messed
technology
up.
now.
I put in Homo Dentata because I'm due for a root canal after the holiday. I'm so sick of teeth that I'm just like, you know what? I hate Little Freakos. I think
Why
I
is
think
there
you're
a
all
rapper
terrible.
named Kid G? I don't like this.
When I think of Kid G, I think suffer like G did? Question mark. From Typing of the Dead mostly, but I've seen pictures of Kid G. Agreed, Lil Frico for sure.
So hold on. I'm pulling this up. I don't know why I have like the world's slowest. I'm using like the base Internet Explorer thing because I don't use anything else on this other PC. Don't use Edge. Just don't do it. It's
Agreed.
it's a bad time.
They're all bad. They're all bad now.
I love how they all suck.
Kid G, I did the quest, but I got so frustrated I bounced. But he is terrible. The goblins in Final Fantasy VII. We should talk about one canceled submission was Moogles from Final Fantasy VII. Someone said they have head veins. I never noticed, but that's terrible. I hate the idea of Moogles with veins, visible veins.
Ugh.
So this is Kid G. Kid G is like, what if Dobby from Harry Potter became Jake Paul? Because he literally has the boxing gloves and like the weird drip and stuff like that. And he's just like, hey man, you found me. Welcome to my underground base. We're going to do a Cactar minigame now. Do enough of these and I'll give you something. But they all suck. All the minigames that he has suck. I'm sorry. Like, Final Fantasy Rebirth has bad minigames. Not all bad minigames, but it does have bad minigames in there. Sorry if that's revelatory to you.
Why don't we vote for the Cactuar that has hair?
Oh, the Corneo Cactar? That's also a good Freako. But
that's
no, Kid G, everything about him is appalling to me. His existence strikes sorrow into my heart. I do not wish him to continue existing in this plane on this mortal coil. However, I am willing to cede it to the Homo dentata, aka the teeth from Metaphor. Teeth. They are also a little Freako. I was simply trying to not let this be a Metaphor sweep, but my vote is potentially up for grabs as well.
I will, just for the sake of giving Final Fantasy VII Remake some, much deserved accolades, I would give this to Kid G. I hate that thing. I hate the way the goblins look in Final Fantasy VII. I don't know what their problem is. I don't know what the Moogles' problems are. Everything else looks great, so I don't know why we gotta have two eldritch horrors running around.
I don't know what Kid G is, but sure, why not?
It was explained. Jake Paul is Dobby.
I keep Google searching for teeth, and all the results are terrifying.
Oh my god! Everything's gonna be erotic or bad or both.
Both.
So it's Homo dentata or Kid G is kind of what it's down to. I think both are appropriate little Freakos.
Yeah, but we got to give it to someone, so I would give it to Kid G myself. But
Kid G.
I also wanted to say, like, the community did vote higher for Homo dentata, so like that is like the more prevalent vote amongst the community.
The community votes for teeth.
But
it's
Kid
our
G
podcast,
sucks.
so screw you.
Should we do a chat poll? Should that determine this? We should do a chat poll. I haven't done one of those in a while.
Fine. All right, go.
All right. Live on the Twitch for those here.
What's the vote?
Oh god, how do I do this? Yeah, okay. Who is the littlest Freako? Responses: the teeth or Kid G. It will last for a single minute. The poll has started on Twitch. You may vote. Now keep in mind, the teeth are creepy. So is Kid G. The teeth talk. So does Kid G. There's a lot going on here. I also need to, while we're vamping, I do have to shout out Jesse Vitelli, friend of the show, who is the arbiter of all things Lil Freako. When I told him this category was made, he felt there was a notion of bit stealing happening. So we do have to honor Jesse Vitelli by noting him as the noted scholar of all things Lil Freako, and the true tastemaker.
Isn't he?
No, Jesse's not a little freako. Don't put that on him.
Well, I mean, not in a bad way. You can be.
He's not even here to defend himself.
I think you'd agree with me. I think it's okay to be a little freako.
Oh, jeez, Nadia.
I'm a little freako. You don't see me being embarrassed about it.
Throwing elbows at the end of the year. Poll has ended, and the teeth have won.
The teeth have
Wow,
spoken.
the teeth.
The people have spoken. They do not like the teeth. We will tolerate Jake Paul Dobby, but we will not tolerate teeth.
Teeth cannot be tolerated.
I was going to play it straight a little bit and say, well, Catchy, they did a great job of bringing this bizarre character from the original game to life. Huge presence in the game. Easily the worst side quest of the game, I have to say. I did that whole side quest and I hated every moment of it.
That one
was that a main quest? They forced you to do it, right?
Yeah, that was the main quest, and that was like the
oh my god,
Nibelheim Mansion, which was one of my favorite moments in the original game, and they really just kind of that was the only point of the game I was like, you know what, screw you guys, I'm going home.
A new, a brand new variation on the crate pushing quest, tossing them like basketballs.
If this was worse. We should have had a category for worst minigame in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth specifically.
That's my vote.
Because I would have put Ketchy's 3-point challenge on that list.
1000%. Oh my god. I mean, you could have an entire list right there, but
Queen's Blood
Rebirth.
Great.
I love you in many ways, but please, somebody needed to say, okay, but seriously, we need to make some cuts here. Did we need this quest? Well, we got to do something with Catchy. Dude,
do we?
Do you have to force me to have him in my party? He's not even that fun to use in Rebirth. Not. He's actually kind of miserable to use.
Red 13 is a blast. I'm not switching to Catchy.
My main party was Barrett and Aerith. Or no, sorry. My main party was Barrett and Yuffie. Barrett and Yuffie were the two.
I was Yuffie and Aerith.
Yeah. Both
Aerith
good,
is
yeah.
good.
No red love in this space. I'm disappointed.
Red's very
Red 13
good.
Was definitely good. He's an alternate. He's a strong alternate for me.
He's pretty great.
Okay. Time to move on to the next category. This is the innovation category, and this is honoring the RPGs that did the most to push RPGs forward. And here are your nominees. Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, Unicorn Overlord, Caves of Kud, Metaphor, Refantagio, and UFO 50. And the winner is UFO 50, which is an interesting choice because in many ways it's looking back rather than looking ahead. It's not necessarily pushing the genre forward, but I voted for it because I loved the way that they took old concepts from RPGs and riffed on them. I think a great example is the dungeon crawler Valbrace, which in many ways is your classic turn-based dungeon crawler, but then there's Punch-Out in it. There's actual action-based combat. It's cool. It's a cool mixture, and to see these really great RPG developers kind of riff on all of these established concepts has been fun, and I hope that other developers take it forward as well. There are other options in this one as well. Unicorn Overlord, I think, really it riffs so heavily on Ogre Battle, but then the way that it mixed in sort of the Final Fantasy 12 gambits was really cool, in my opinion.
I could not get the hang of it. It something about it.
You mentioned,
did not click with me, and I'm disappointed in myself because of that. But gorgeous looking game, and from what I've been told by you and frankly the entire internet, it's really great tribute to Ogre Battle, and Vanillaware is just great. They're one of those few developers who can sit there and say, "This is what we want to do. This is what we're going to do," and they do it, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think like with Unicorn Overlord, and that was like my really close second on this, was like talking and doing B-roll at the same time is very difficult. I don't know if you know this, but I think like Kat said, it's really incredible the way this game does the sort of ogre battle type thing with the gambits and turns it into this really robust system that just continues to build upon itself throughout the game. I love all the units. I love the unit types. I love how there are weird synergies that you can find that become almost broken, that remind me of like kind of modern game design when it comes to auto battlers and things like that, because those games do tend to be about finding weird synergies that suddenly turn something that's like really good into something that's really, really powerful, and you watch it just like spin up and fire and go crazy. Some of my endgame parties were just absolutely disgusting, the things that they could do. And the cool thing was that, like, I think this is a really tough, like, needle to thread, but they didn't all do the same thing. And I think in a lot of auto battling type games, you try to optimize towards, this is my burst build, this is my speed build. Like, you're kind of doing this, my DOT build. I think the ways in which this game encourages you to try and form like a complete party that can not only do the things you want it to do, but then do interesting things, do different things, or have like entire parties who honestly were just on the field to use their map abilities, or to like call down rain or heal in an area, or do like speed ups to like make my units move faster on the overworld. Like the little tactical layers and strategic layers that this game weaves in, they're so good. Like they're really, really compelling. Like just talking about it now, I'm like, oh yeah, like we talk about the actual battles where you're kind of smashing your squads together, but then you have this part that we were just seeing on the B-roll where they're kind of moving around on the big map, and you can do things there and mess with emplacements and try to seize different encampments and push around in strategic ways. And it's just a really solid game all around. I almost want to, like, if I change my vote, it ain't gonna change nothing. But it was like a really close fight for me between this and UFO 50 in terms of just clever, fascinating stuff I'd not really seen done in the space before.
Our next category, and we've got 3 left. Visual achievement, and our nominees are Fantasia Neo Dimension, Dragon Quest III HD 2D, Unicorn Overlord, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and Metaphor Refantasio. And again, this was a split vote. Metaphor, DQ3, Fantasian, and FF7 Rebirth all received a vote. So I'm going to change my vote to DQ3 HD 2D. Because I was actually on the point of doing that one. That's the game that made me like HD 2D. I didn't think that I could ever like HD 2D, but they did such a good job with it. One of the things that always annoys me about that format is the sprites always look kind of small, and it always looks a little dark, and the 3D aspects always seem a little bit muddy. And Dragon Quest III HD 2D has an artistry, a beauty. It, to me, is probably the defining version of this particular game, and I think it deserves to be celebrated. So I'm calling it audible, and I'm saying Dragon Quest III HD 2D is the one.
Yeah, that was my choice as well, because as someone who is basically influenced to be a writer by Dragon Quest III, the first one, being able to see those locales I was familiar with, like in a real built-up sense, and yet still have that whimsy to them. Like, I could recognize everything. It wasn't like, as much as I love Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, it's not like you're necessarily revisiting all the parts of Final Fantasy VII, like, the way they were. But Dragon Quest III managed to kind of strike that balance between nostalgia and just, modern aesthetics. And, of course, you have the monster designs, which are all fantastic, all classic, animated superbly. Classic designs, like from Toriyama, who, of course, left us this year, so that's another reason I just kind of want to enshrine Dragon Quest III HD 2D. Great game, great look to it. I mean, Metaphor, of course, is the other obvious choice, but I don't want to say it looks like Persona 5, because it certainly doesn't, but I am a little more familiar with that art style versus Dragon Quest III HD 2D just felt something completely different and new to me, even though it was HD 2D and HD 2D has been done.
I think there's something really cool about when you take a game like this and you give it such a visual makeover that is what, like, I will say this as somebody who can be a little bit picky about the visuals of a game, that you take the same systems, but you put this like gorgeous coat of paint over it, and all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, no, this is incredible. This is really, really good. It's the same game underneath, but it's just got this really gorgeous, like inherently nostalgic coat of paint over the top, where like I never played this game. I have no actual real nostalgia for it, but the pixels, the like old school vibes, even just the way the camera moves and what you can see on the field, like it all gives me like very cozy feelings of like, oh, I've got a new RPG to just really dig into. And not to get ahead of ourselves to the tavern or anything like that, but this is definitely one that I think I'm going to end up poking around during the holidays.
And Eric, you're a big proponent of Fantasia Neo Dimension.
Yeah, this was the one that I really wanted to like shout out in this category specifically, because for those who don't know, Fantasian by Mistwalker, obviously helmed by the father of Final Fantasy, quote unquote, Hironobu Sakaguchi. But it's the look of this game is really something special. I think like what most people end up taking away from it is that the actual characters are kind of these CG, almost look doll-like or claymation-like, but then all of the world, all of the pre-rendered backgrounds are dioramas, and they look gorgeous. They look so impressive. And I think there are definitely parts of this game where, especially in the UI and things like that, you can tell that this was a mobile title originally. But yeah, you can see right there these environments that you're running in. Like there's like texture to them, and there's like depth that you just don't always see in completely CGI art or in completely digital art. There's just like you could reach out and you want to like touch the felt. You want to feel how those trees feel. I want to touch the dioramas of Fantasian. I don't know why. This is like me wanting to eat the crystals in Final Fantasy 14. Like there's something about just like the way that world looks that's so tactile and like interesting and physical in a way that you're like almost watching your toys play out a story for you. And I love that. I love that concept. I still haven't finished this game personally. I really do want to over the holidays, but I think the way it looks is something that is really refreshing, honestly. I believe back when they were talking about making this game originally, Sakaguchi was saying like, hey, you know, I was really considering just like, what could I do that was different? What could I do that felt like we were doing something different? Maybe even moving forward a little bit or trying something new. And the concept of using dioramas was just a really, really fascinating concept that I don't think I've seen a lot. In a weird way, it reminds me of Moon RPG Remix. It's got some of those same vibes to me, and it's really cool to see somebody who you normally associate with Final Fantasy and stuff like that, like dig into some of those like alternative, strange ways of like portraying a world.
Yeah, I agree. It's a very, in an age where we talk about everything being CG, and of course the video game has to be CG, but being able to put that tactile component into a video game is unique and interesting, and I think it really does give Fantasia its own sheen.
Our second to last category, the penultimate category.
Penultimate.
RPG Studio of the Year. And our categories and our nominees. Digital Eclipse. RGG Studio. From Software, Larian Studios, and Atlas. And this winner was by acclamation. The winner is Atlas, which put out 3 incredible bangers. Sega Atlas in general. I mean, they put out Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth. Atlas put out Persona 3 Reload, Metaphor Refantagio, and Unicorn Overlord.
Do we want to rule that this is a Sega Atlas win and not just an Atlas win?
It's a Sega Atlas win.
I'm personally okay with that. I think that's fine.
Yeah.
I think Sega should be included in this. But
what a year!
Yeah, it's just like
untouched.
Not only was Metaphor an incredible project, but Shin Megami Tensei 5, I keep calling it Revengeance, but it's just Vengeance.
Vengeance.
Also,
Shin
also
Megami Tensei
great.
Rising Revengeance.
Right here, you just like me. Yeah, that would be pretty great, actually.
Rules of nature.
Nature, that's a Shadowbringers guy, you know? Yeah, so I feel very confident just giving it to Atlas. And of course, Persona 3, I didn't mention there. But they worked hard, and they got a lot of accolades for it. Good for them.
Shout out also to Larian Studios. In fact, numerous voters actually nominated Sven Vinke. Not just Larian Studios, but Sven Vinke, who's really become a sort of a moral voice of the games industry. I mean, just go check out his speech during the Game Awards in which he said developers should be able to make the games they want to play. Full stop. And the money will follow. And he's done a lot to decry working conditions, to keep Larian Studios fully independent. And again, I think he's really turned Larian Studios into an exemplar of gaming gone right, game development gone right. And so I think he deserves to be celebrated for that. But what a year for them as well. They didn't even put out a game, and yet here they are, continuing to support Baldur's Gate 3 in really impressive and really meaningful ways. So
I think it's really cool, like, just straight up to take that opportunity, especially after last year and having the whole please wrap it up, debacle and all that, to then go out on stage, know that you've basically got the stage, and that the collective boos from the audience have ensured that you're not going to get a please wrap it up. And then Sven went out there and gave a speech like that. That was like, if you went back and we read it on the show last year, like what he put out on Twitter ultimately that he would have read in entirety on the stage was already very moving. And then the speech he gave this year was just like, I think it was the thing a lot of people in this industry needed to hear. Like it was very lofty, it was very aspirational, it's very idealistic, but it's also like the hope and reality from somebody who has definitely like put in and seen the work and has done their time, building things up. We've talked so much on this pod about how Divinity became, the foundation of what Baldur's Gate 3 eventually would be. And like that success was not earned overnight. The success was fought for. And it's really cool, and maybe even a rare sight, to see somebody in a position like that get up on stage and say things like that and speak like that. And I think that's why it moved so many people. Because we had votes that came in that were specifically like Sven Vinke for Dev of the Year, like Larian rules, but also specifically Sven Vinke. And I think that speaks to finally having someone in the game space that you feel like you can be like, oh, this is someone like out there, like speaking the truth, like speaking honestly to the audience, but in a way that's hopeful and inspiring. And that means a lot. That means a lot this year.
It does.
And finally, RPG of the Year, the Roadie. This award goes to the best RPG of 2024. And this is something we do every year, something that we've done since the dawn of Axe of the Blood God, these many years ago on US Gamer. We pick the best RPG of the year. This is the first time, though, that I think that we've really done a really intentional voting process. And I don't think the winner is going to surprise you, but let's go through it anyway. RPG of the Year, the nominees: Persona 3 Reload, Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, Unicorn Overlord, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and Metaphor ReFantagio. And the winner is, drumroll please, opening the envelope, shaking, Metaphor ReFantagio is the best RPG of 2024, and I, for one, am shocked by this result.
Crushing my pearls.
Oh my gosh.
Crushing my
We shouted this one.
Ripping them until they rip.
No, it was a pretty obvious pick, but at the same time, what else could it be? Oh, I mean, I guess Final Fantasy. I love Final Fantasy VII, of course, but it has its problems, like we talked about. Metaphor, we've already kind of poured everything we possibly can on it. It is just a great third pillar for Atlas. They really nailed the battle system, nailed the characters. There's nothing much to say. I'm just really looking forward to what comes next for Metaphor and Persona, frankly.
We shouted out Metaphor Refantasio in the preview, the 2024 preview, and said
That's right. It was one of our.
This is on our radar.
Mm-hmm.
This is like maybe the most interesting RPG that we were paying attention to this year, and sure enough, it ended up being the best one. I remember, much like Baldur's Gate 3, recall that Baldur's Gate 3 did not have a lot of hype until the final stream from hell, or whatever they were calling it, where they just rolled out everything. They showed how the romances worked and a lot of other aspects of the final game of Baldur's Gate 3. The bear. And it sent wish lists through the roof, and then Baldur's Gate 3. And they also moved up the release because they were so nervous about Starfield, which is pretty funny in hindsight. But Baldur's Gate 3 just went off. There's a lot of questions about Metaphor. Would it be successful? Would it be undone by the fact that they decided to get rid of romances? Do people even know what this is about? And when it came out, it ended up being a big success for Atlas. And there was a lot of reasons, starting with the fact that it had a simultaneous console and PC release. So it got in front of a lot more people than I think it might have otherwise. And it's been carried by really, really, really strong word of mouth. It won IGN's Game of the Year, which is pretty impressive, actually. So here we are, best game of 2024. Not just best RPG of the year, best game of the year in a runaway, in my opinion. And is that a surprise? RPGs, it's the best genre, so it's not surprising to see another RPG, the best thing to come out in 2024.
We talked a lot about Metaphor in the top 10, so we don't need to go like super in depth, and y'all should go sign up for the tier and listen to the top 10s for like some really in-depth talk about it. But one thing that didn't get mentioned that I wanted to bring up here, and why I think Metaphor really does stick with me, is there's such like a love for the craft here. Like the menus, the cut scenes, the way that the character portraits cut in, and that very Persona style, but like with their own version of it. I love all the different animations where if you get caught by an enemy, or if you get the like hit, or if you get the hit and one of your other characters comes in for the attack and things like that. There's just every little detail of this, from the UI to the art to the story to the music to the way the job system works and the way those systems and items and accessories and skills can overlap. It feels like there is no stone unturned. Everything was tuned, everything was crafted, even getting into the ways that they kind of stage out the shops and what you can access at different times and how you can move around the world, and the calendar system, and using that along with travel to create this really interesting set of constrictions that gets you to like really engage with RPG systems. Like this is such a like well tuned and honed machine that you just look at it and you're like, they cooked. They like put their all into this thing. And I love a lot of the games this year, but every time I was thinking about my GOTY, I was like, it's Metaphor. Like, there's nothing else I played that felt like it hit this degree of just sheer love for what was being done here, love for the craft of making an RPG. So yeah, it really resonated with me, and I loved it.
It was made by an established team, and in many ways drew upon the appeal of what had come before, both in Shin Megami Tensei with aspects of the press return system, but also the Persona series. And yet it was wholly new. It was a new franchise, a new setting. It had aspects of classical fantasy, but also drew really heavily on 80s anime in particular. Also D&D, a lot of really neat influences, and it felt like one of the freshest things to come out in the mainstream AAA space this year. So,
Sure.
hats off to Sega and Atlas. Metaphor Refantagio. In a runaway, it was unanimous. Game of the Year, RPG of the Year, and the winner of the Blood God Choice Awards. It got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 awards, because it also got the Little Freako, and Sega Atlas got Dev of the Year. So really ran away with it. If anything, the biggest surprise is that it didn't get visual achievement, because that game, the art in that game is something else. Even just the menus and the way that they slant out the different things, it's really hard to align it. Just look at the difference between Persona 3 Reload, a really good looking game in its own right, and Metaphor Refantagio. It's stunning, honestly. So, but we had some really good looking games this year, so.
We did.
We did. But congratulations to Sega and Atlas, Metaphor Refantagio. It's our RPG of the Year. And that is it for the first ever Blood God Choice Awards. Do you have your favorite? Do you want to share some RPGs that you thought deserved a lot more love from Axe of the Blood God? We want to hear from you, cat@bloodgodpod.com, or join the Discord by signing up on our Patreon at patreon.com/bloodgodpod. To recap, RPG of the Year, Metaphor Refantagio. It also gets Best Story. Heismay gets Best Character. UFO 50 is our Indie RPG of the Year. Brianna White is our Performance of the Year. Metaphor's Battle Theme gets our Track of the Year. The Loveless Performance is our Moment of the Year. Shadow of the Erdtree is the Best Expansion. Homo Dentata is the Little Freako of the Year. UFO 50 gets Innovation. Dragon Quest III HD 2D is our Visual Achievement, and Sega Atlas is the Dev of the Year. Congratulations to all the winners. Well deserved. Okay. It's time now for a series of random encounters. Final Fantasy VII director Naoki Hamaguchi says DLC was considered for Rebirth but scrapped, and asked also players to avoid installing offensive or inappropriate mods on the PC version. Good luck with that.
So many naked clouds.
What? Thomas the Train Engine's getting speared by Sephiroth.
Why is this mod's called Oops All Yowie? What does this one do?
It's fine.
How did Homo Dentata show up in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth?
Wait, hold on. We've got a mod being appended to the Blood God pod right now. Oh God, Kid G, but larger. They made him larger.
It's just all Kid G for all of the different characters.
Oops, all Kid G's.
Secret Level has been renewed for a second season. Diablo 4, if you haven't had a chance to play it, it's getting a free trial over Christmas. Ys vs. Trails in the Sky Alternative Saga is getting a worldwide release on PS5, PS4, Switch, and PC in 2025. If you're not familiar with it, it's a crossover fighting game originally released on PSP in 2010. It will feature English voice acting, 4K and 60 FPS, and multiplayer support. Pretty cool. Actually, I'm looking forward to playing that one. Octopath Traveler 2 has surpassed 5 million units sold.
Yeah.
Monster Hunter Wilds will add PS5 Pro support in a day one patch. Sony is now From Software's largest shareholder. Sorry, From Software owner Katakawa's largest shareholder. God, that's a mouthful.
Yeah.
And Yuji Horii, bless him, says he's never thought about retirement, and that's great, because just keep going, Yuji Horii. You're a treasure.
You're doing great.
And now we're rolling into the tavern, and we've been going at this for like an hour and 40 minutes. We had some topics prepared, but let's just talk really quickly about, instead, biggest news stories of 2024. Think a little bit, recap briefly what happened in 2024. We had a lot of layoffs. Very rough stuff, ultimately. I was looking through the headlines that happened in 2024 and looking for maybe the biggest thing to happen in RPGs. And it was just layoff, 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 studio closure, layoff, Game Informer is shut down. But I think that the biggest story of 2024 in RPGs might be Nintendo and the Pokemon Company suing Pal World's developer Pocket Pair. I think that's kind of a big deal.
It was a big deal, but for such a small sum, it was kind of strange.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the most notable ones, just because Pal World was a little brazen in its desire to we're gonna do Pokemon with guns, basically. I know it's like
we're gonna be a multimedia franchise.
Yeah. And I still think it's funny that we're still seeing ads for Pal World. Like, somebody was saying at the Game Awards, like, that they aired like a Pal World trailer, and then all the Nintendo people in the audience are just like gripping their armrests. And, that was pretty crazy. I feel like the Katakawa Almost acquisition was also one of the largest ones. Maybe not
if it had actually gone through, it'd be the big one.
Yeah. I and granted that I said this again, I'll say it, now. Yes, it would have meant FromSoft, but also like Katakawa as an anime conglomerate, as like basically Sony acquiring a massive chunk of anime media when they already own a lot of anime media. There was a great report on Bloomberg recently about kind of the fight for anime rights, especially in the US, between Sony, Disney, and Netflix. And it's been really interesting to see that wage out, because all of a sudden anime is big business, and that does kind of overlap with RPGs in a lot of ways, because a lot of RPGs are anime.
Pretty much.
So that would have been one of the larger stories of the year for me too, was if that had gone through. But even just the fact that Sony was trying to put that out there, was trying to chase that kind of stuff, I think does say a lot about where Sony, the company, is at, what they're looking to do, and where their business priorities kind of lie right now.
Yeah, for sure. My big news story, I don't think we put it down on the doc, but I just thought of it. Nintendo edging one all year long about the Switch 2. So it's a story about a non-story. And when they did the alarm clock,
Nintendo
and then the
edges
other
the
thing,
Switch 2 is crazy.
But as someone who was not part of the news cycle, watching, going from the back, I'm just drinking, eating popcorn like Michael Jackson, and watching Nintendo. We have an announcement. Everyone, all of you
It's
guys,
happening.
I'm sorry.
It's happening.
It's happening, and then it's we have an alarm clock, and everyone
Pew,
loses their
pew.
shit. And then
Say
it happened
hello.
again.
Everybody thought it would happen in
Alarmo.
September, and Nintendo was like, Alarmo.
Alarmo. But there was something else that they revealed this year, and I can't remember what it was, but it was so insignificant compared to the Switch 2. And again,
They
everyone
opened a
got hyped
museum.
up.
That was pretty cool.
That was cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was different. Yeah, okay, but the Alarmo is fantastic, the best story of the year, and Nintendo edging everyone. That's great.
I think another really big story, and maybe the biggest story, if you think about it, is actually who we lost this year in the RPG space.
Unfortunately.
Here are just some names. In February, we lost Yoshitaka Murayama, the creator of Suikoden. That was a huge one.
God, that was this year. Frig.
We lost Akira Toriyama.
That's a huge one.
Needs no introduction. I mean, just
That still hurt-
a
that still hurts
defining
me.
artistic force in Dragon Quest, Chrono Trigger, Blue Dragon. It was very sudden as well. Really sad.
Very sad.
We lost Mutsumi Inomata, characters designer for the Tales series. In the movie space, we lost Bernard Hill,
That's right.
who's not only in Fable 3, I mean, we know him as King Theoden in the Lord of the Rings movies, and a really memorable part of that. We lost Rachel Lillis, who voiced Jessie, Misty, and Jigglypuff in Pokemon.
That's a big one.
And we lost Masayuki Kato, the founder of Nihon Falcom.
Yeah, that just happened. That's a shame too.
And Andrew Greenberg, the co-creator of the Wizardry series. And numerous of them died pretty young. Their 50s and 60s.
It's a little bit freaky, really. It's concerning.
It's a huge
But it's really
loss.
sad.
Huge loss, for sure. So rest in peace to all of these giants who left us in 2024. You have done so much for RPGs in general. So thank you for that. And now we're heading into the holidays. This is the last episode, 2024. Gonna relax a little bit, play some games, and I just have to ask you two, what you're gonna be playing over the holidays, if anything. Are you gonna play games? You gonna chill? You gonna watch anime?
Probably, I'm gonna watch more One Piece.
You've been watching One Piece?
Oh yeah, no, I thought we had talked about this. I've been watching One Piece. I'm in peak unemployment hours over here. Like we've hit the cap, which is watching One Piece. Yeah, no, it turns out One Piece is really good, and I think playing Final Fantasy 14 like primed me for the type of story that One Piece is, because it's very much about like I think much like 14, One Piece people like will talk about like, oh, the peaks are really up there. Like you got to get to the moment when this happens, and there's certainly some good moments, but I've been enjoying the journey. I've been enjoying getting to know these goofball pirates, and I never thought I would like this story because I always thought the art style was a little odd, and I still kind of do, but it's like really grown on me as time has gone on. It's very expressive in a way I enjoy, and maybe because I've been drawing, like it's really fun to like see the ways in which these characters can, you know, be goofy but also have these like really gorgeous portraits and stuff like that. It's been fun, but while I've been doing that, I have been like poking away at my backlog because it's really easy to like second screen those episodes. So I think Dragon Quest is probably pretty high on my list. I feel like that's something that I've needed to get acquainted with for a while now, having never really played a Dragon Quest before. I played the demo for 11. That is the most Dragon Quest I've ever played. Was I played the demo all the way through, and then I bought the game because I was like, that was a really good demo, and I didn't play any more of it. So I'm debating whether I want to do the HD 2D Dragon Quest 3 or if I want to just go back to 11 and finish that one out.
I don't know. That's a good question. I almost feel like 11, if you want that really modern Dragon Quest adventure. 3 is a little more... it still take you about 40 hours, but 11 will take you a lot longer than 40 hours.
I've got time, let me tell you.
I would say go for 11, then go back to 3 to kind of really, you know, get a feeling for the references, because 3 tells, you know, a story about the whole... that endures through the whole series, practically.
Gotcha.
I want to play Cyberpunk, especially because I got a new computer, so I bet it would look pretty good on it. But I have homework to do.
Homework?
Specifically, I got homework. I got to finish Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
You do.
That's it.
Yes.
And you have to play 14.
I'm finishing it next week. I may even stream it, so keep an eye out on twitch.tv/bloodgodpod this week, because I'm going to be making a big push to try and get this done before 2025. Staying with my promise, and then maybe we can do a spoiler cast early next year.
Heck yeah.
Huh?
I will also finish FF6 at some point, I promise. That will happen. The retro
also,
streams will return.
I have FF14 installed. I have a subscription going. I promise I'm going to play Final Fantasy 14 in this coming week into the new year.
You're far. You're pretty far in.
It just keeps going. A Realm Reborn will not end.
It does not.
Honestly, A Realm Reborn is not that bad. I think it's a perfectly competent RPG story. I think it gets talked down a lot, but they've done a lot.
It's not the RPG story. It's just going back and forth, running the quests.
Kat, I want to tell you something. I found an old... I actually found the list I wrote for 2019, my favorite games, and that was when I first started playing Final Fantasy XIV and A Realm Reborn. That was when it was really boring. And the thing I did, apparently, was when I got bored with the story, I became a botanist. And I did something completely different for a bunch of hours. I went back to the story. I'm like, okay, I'm ready. You can do... you don't have to lock yourself down. You can have fun. You can try things. Like, you can try different classes, try different side quests, be a crafter, be a gatherer. These are all really fun
Can
things.
I do that? Can I do that right now?
Oh, yeah, yes. Absolutely. From the start, you can start doing crafting and gathering. Yeah.
I guess I just feel a lot of pressure to get through this content.
I
That
bet you
So-
have fun.
That's
That's what I want to
the-
see you have first and foremost.
that's the One Piece thing that I was talking about is like love the journey, love the trip from here to there, and like engage with stuff when you want to engage with it. Like you can't access any raid content yet because you have to finish Realm Reborn to unlock the first set of raids, but like you probably have access to, I think, Gold Saucer at this point.
You have Gold Saucer, yeah.
Yeah, you have like a bunch of extra stuff you can do. There are obviously dungeons you can run, but like
You can learn Triple Triad.
you can play Triple Triad.
You
Let me tell
You
you,
can play Triple Triad, man.
that's a slippery slope.
Might never come back, but it's a great version of Triple Triad. You can train
I
your
d-
Chocobo.
I don't-
Yeah, I have race Chocobos.
I have my chocobo. I can race my
Well,
chocobo.
no, there's actually a whole breeding that like sticks closely to kind of horse racing standards. Like you have to have a sire and a dam and covering fees but I have this great chocobo called Fire Emblem. He's like 4th generation. And
Fire
gotta
Emblem
work
the
on his
Chocobo.
he annihilates anyone he comes up. Well, no, I'm lying. When he comes up against a live racer, I get destroyed usually, but it's fun.
That's reasonable. I think that there's a lot of quests that on a moment to moment basis are not really good. Because
that's fair.
they just say, go here, get this thing, and bring it back to a person. It's a lot of fetch quests. And I actually like the battles. I like the fighting. I like it when it actually sends me on a little bit of a dungeon run. And getting to that point takes a while. So there will be a lot of times where I'll be listening to a podcast or something and, to my mind, kind of mindlessly running back and forth between I'm in this hub and I'm going to go get this thing and I'm going to bring it back to this person and they're going to tell me to go to this next and I'm going to go do that and I'm going to keep going. And am I going to fight anybody anytime soon? Is there...
Yeah, you probably have warp tickets to the Praying Sands or Waking Sands. They give you
the
a bunch of
pray return to the
praying
Waking Sands.
Yeah, that's why I got
Yeah, the
screwed up.
Vesper
I like
Bay
when I get
8th, right?
actual cutscenes. Those are fun. When they start bringing in I forget what they're called, the characters that live in the
Scions.
Waking Sands.
The Scions.
Yeah, when they show up, that's cool.
Oh, we love the
Yeah.
Scions.
We love the science.
Yeah, there are aspects of 14 that are cool, for sure. It's
The-
I'm
just
just saying, like, don't confine yourself. If you find you need a break, because yes, A Realm Reborn can get repetitive, especially around that 30 level dip. There's a lot you can do in this world. There's a reason it's endured for so long.
I will also say that a lot of the drama and tension of the story is very backloaded in Realm Reborn. So, like, once you get to the late 40s scale, that's when all of a sudden, like, oh, like, Van Balezar is, like, actually doing stuff and not just kind of, like, appearing in a cutscene every now and then. And, like, Livia Sinjulis is, like, actually an intimidating figure that is going to, like, hunt you and stuff like that. And you don't get a lot of that until you get into, like, the later parts, like much later parts of Realm Reborn, and that's maybe like the weakest part of it, I think, because I do think that level 30 to 40 dip is real.
Yeah.
But then you get into that, and you get into like the post patches. I love the post patches. I know people out there don't like the post patches.
Oh, I love post patches.
I love Phantom Pain Alphino. All right, that shit, I ate that up.
Oh no, Phantom Pain Alpha Node.
No, Alphino, don't
Oh,
start
God.
a PMC.
Oh no, poor Alpha Node. You really do like get with the characters. Like when I saw Alpha Node and Alizé for the first time, I'm like, yeah, arrogant elves, big deal. But now Alizé is like my kin. She's my twinner.
I went and looked because I threaded on Twitter and like maybe I'll preserve these in some way because I'm probably gonna like just wipe that whole thing down at some point because I'm just done with that platform in general. But literally the first time I met the twins, I was like, who are these children and why are they lecturing me on politics? And it's so funny to go back and look at like my first reactions to characters like the twins or Ishtola or Thancred. Urianger, like all these characters that become like huge facets of like the party that you build throughout Final Fantasy 14. They are basically your party members, and it's funny to go back and look at Realm Reborn and be like, what were they like when I first met them? What was my first impression? It was like, these two kids won't shut the F up about politics.
It was great.
Okay, Final Fantasy 14 sickos. I don't remember what level I am, but I'm about to go into that haunted house.
Hawk
In the
Manor.
story?
Hawk Tua Manor. Yeah.
Hawk Tua Manor. God damn it.
Ugh, don't say
said
things
it.
like
Gotta
that.
Hawk Tua and teleport on that thing.
God. I didn't know anything about that. I just kept hearing about the Hawk Tua girl
too.
and
It's the
that
stupidest
podcast,
meme.
and then finally somebody
Oh, it's
explained
Hawk
it to me,
Tua.
and I was like, I was going through all of 2024 without really understanding it. Damn it.
You
So
learned about
stupid.
Hawk Tua. Did you learn about the Hawk Tua rug pull?
Yes,
have you
I
gone that
did.
deep down the? Yeah.
That was pretty funny. I have to give her props for if she's a grifter. At least she's grifting the grifters.
There was a quote that was going around that was like, I didn't really get cryptocurrency and thought it was a scam, and then I went to a conference where a bunch of people talked about cryptocurrency. I was like, oh, now I get it. I was like, oh, that's saying the quiet part out loud. Yeah. Yeah. No, I love our cursed world. But yeah, no, Hawk Manor is, I think, I like that dungeon a lot because
That's
I think
a great dungeon.
it represents a lot of like dungeon design that I don't think we see often enough in current dungeon design in 14. I think a lot of them are very like designed around the two poles and a boss stuff, and Hawk Manor has some really great puzzle solving, like light puzzles that you have to complete and things like that. And
It's
every
very
time
classic for a dungeon.
every time you go in it, somebody immediately types in chat, I don't remember how to beat
I
this
don't remember.
one.
I'm the tank. I don't know where to go.
Yeah, the
That's
tank
me.
does not know what direction to go in.
So here's my challenge for you. Final Fantasy 14 sickos. Send me a list of things that are interesting that I can do right now that does not involve just endlessly, mindlessly doing fetch quests. Whether that's the triple triad or raising my chocobo or whatever. I'm sure there's
Go to
interesting
Gold
things to
Saucer.
do.
You're
There's
gonna
a million things to
open-
do in Gold Saucer.
You're going to open the party finder and click the other tab. And now I'm going to teach you how housing works so you can go to houses.
Oh no,
you're going
don't
to learn
housing.
You're going to learn about an entire
that a thing
side
I
of
can do?
14. You can go to
can get an
nightclubs.
apartment.
Yeah, you can get an apartment or a house, which is kind of expensive. Apartments are not
Houses
expensive.
I haven't gotten a house.
But people
Send
have
me a list.
people have housing that they turn into like nightclubs and cafes and barred performance areas and open mic nights and things like that. There's an entire other realm
There's
of
a
14.
subculture.
Yeah,
A Realm Reborn.
a realm reborn. even.
I am also unemployed technically right now, so I have a little more time
Me too.
than I have in the past to actually really dig into Final Fantasy 14. I'm doing it. It's happening. So, help me
I'll
out.
give.
Okay. Let's sit for the tavern. Nadia, take us into 2025.
Oh, you don't want me to do that. Basically, I want to tell the same holiday pit that I tell every year because it's too good. It should never die. It should be tradition. And as you all know, because I've said it many times, I used to be a custodian at a mall. And as you can imagine, this was like one of the busiest malls in North America. It's still extremely busy. Christmas time was a madhouse. And we had a mall Santa back then. And he was an employee of the mall like the rest of us. And so he would eat lunch with us in our lunchroom. Now, I wasn't here for this, which really makes me sad, but the telling is absolutely perfect. I can envision it all in my mind. The lunch Santa was drinking Coke. He spilled Coke on his beard. And, of course, he's got a short lunchtime. There's a million kids lined up waiting to see Santa. So, to dry his beard quickly, he put it in the microwave and turned it on for however many seconds or minutes. And apparently the lunchroom filled up with horrible toxic black smoke. And not only did that happen, but the beard was ruined, and Santa again has his lineup of kids. And I worked with this girl named Mila, and she was laughing so hard that apparently they didn't know what to do. They thought they'd have to send her home because she couldn't stop laughing. That was the same year, or maybe it was a different year. We had our own Christmas party because we worked for a corporation, and this was the kind of corporation that would have the company barbecue, invite everyone, and the blue-collar workers got hot dogs while the office workers got chicken. So you can kind of see why I kind of got radicalized working for this place. But the point is, they didn't really have a party for us, so we made our own party. And I worked with a lot of old Italian guys who brew their own wine, and they brought their own wine to the Christmas party once this happened, because holy shit, everyone got hammered before their shift, and I had no idea how strong homemade wine is. I can usually hold my liquor okay, but when you have all these old Italian guys who are really proud of their homemade wine, saying, Nadia, try my wine, oh no, try my wine, holy shit, that was bathtub wine. That got me proper smashed. That got everyone proper smashed, and we were kind of like weaving through our shifts, and again, this is extremely busy. I'm supposed to be keeping this place clean. Someone broke a bottle at some point in the mall, and instead of cleaning it up, I'm just staring at it like I know I'm supposed to do something. And this other guy I'm working with, totally blasted, comes over and stares with me, and neither of us can figure out what to do with this bottle and the juice that everyone's now walking in, and the broken glass that everyone's now walking in. And at the end of the day, I was still just like kind of loopy out of my mind, and sometimes stores would give us like stuff at the end of the day, like donuts or bread or whatever, and the pretzel stand woman asked me, do you want some pretzels? And I thought she was threatening me. I'm like, pencil, what are you talking about, pencil? That was the last time she ever asked any of us if we wanted anything. But that was ironically, that was probably the most important job I ever worked, when you think about it, being a custodian. Because let me tell you something, if there are no custodians in the area, you're going to have a pig pen in less than an hour. So that was an interesting job, I'll say that. And probably some of the best Christmas moments ever.
Truly, you are the person you are today because of that custodian job.
You guys were all in college, I was there. So that tells you about my upbringing.
Happy holidays, everybody, and thank you so much for listening to another year of Acts of the Blood God. Thank you so much for your generous support. We have been doing this for almost 10 years now. 2025 is going to be our 10th year, our 5th year of the Patreon, our 500th episode. We got lots of stuff planned, including the launch of the newsletter. I'm going to be taking a little break, but we'll have a Pantheon out for everybody on the free feed on the 30th, and then lots of content in the new year. It's going to be a big one. Switch 2 is coming out,
I know.
Probably, at some point.
Edge us for another year.
Has to eventually.
Yeah.
Gotta do it sometime, Nintendo.
And hopefully a more positive year as well. And we will see you again, our dear Blood God listeners, our dear disciples. Hope you play a lot of RPGs. I hope that you're warm and safe and cozy and having a great... And you're not too stressed out with the family.
Yeah. It's going to be rough for some of you, I know, but we're on your side.
Once again, if you enjoy the show, patreon.com/bloodgodpod. You can go check out right now for our $5 patrons, exclusively a special bonus episode in which we share our top 10 lists and talk about the best games of 2024. Eric and Michael have a really great conversation about 1000 Times Resist in particular, and we have lots more metaphor conversation in that one as well. We're heading into the Acts of the Blood God post-show with our beloved Stars of Destiny, and this week we're joined by Anthrax Bees, Billa, Harvest Lunatic, JB, Laguna Matata, 124, Mango Alt, Spyrus Stargazer, and our beloved mods, Criminal Justice, and Robo Riley. Thank you so much, and I'm just going to hang out, and we're going to talk... Well, apparently we've been asked what the definition of Little Frico is, so I think we got to answer that one.
I guess we got to talk about it.
It's time for a deep dive into the deep lore of the Little Frico in Acts of the Blood God. And, yeah, that's it for us. I've been your host, Kat Bailey. We'll be back next year, as always, in 2025. Check out stay tuned for our RPG preview, which we've already recorded, but it's going to be going live for everybody in early January. And for Nadia, Eric, myself, thanks for listening. Happy holidays and happy adventuring.